let's keep it going for David. Come on up, David.
Fitting in is easy when you're homeschooled. From the mid-'80s all the way into the early '90s, I was something of a standout student in the homemade classroom in my mother's basement in Flint, Michigan. I was valedictorian, I ran the school newspaper. I really felt like every year, either me or my sister were winning all of the school awards. But good things come to an end. And in the fall in '96, change hit my life. I was going to be 13 at the time. 9th grade was starting, and that meant public high school. My first day of school, I stood in the hallway nervously. I had a peach button-down tucked into pleated corduroy pants, and I had those white K-Swiss, but the cool ones, the leather ones that nurses wore. And I stood there nervously, and I told myself, you're going to figure this out. You'll be okay. You'll figure it out. And I did figure it out. I realized that in high school there were 2 ways to get through the thing as a guy. You could, 1, you could get really good at sports, or 2, you could get a girlfriend. And so because of a possible issue with asthma, I decided girlfriend was the way, and it wasn't hard. The first girl I asked out said yes. We went to homecoming. Afterwards, there was a first date, and things were really snowballing. We went to a movie. In retrospect, Boogie Nights may not have been the right film for a 14-year-old prepubescent. When Mark Wahlberg's penis hit the screen, is 50 feet wide, his penis was roughly the size of a jet ski. And I remember thinking, oh my God. But we were one of the couples that makes it. We were 1 week in, and 1 week spilled over into 2, and Kristen called me one night. She said, do you want to come over to my house and meet my family? And I said, yeah, I do. And I did because parents were my jam. The over 40 crowd was like a sweet spot for me. And I went to her house. My mom dropped me off, and I watched the taillights of her car disappear into the snowstorm, get further and further away until they were totally gone. And I went into Kristen's house, and I saw all the trappings of a perfect Midwest family. I saw, you know, the photo albums, the artifacts, the antiques, everything. And one thing was missing. Where are your parents? I said to Kristen. She said, they're out. And she smiled at me. Oh. And I came in, and we spent some time looking around the house. We chilled out. I avoided horizontal areas or anything with pillows. And things were cool until she led me to the kitchen. She pushed a chair up to the refrigerator. She said, do you want to really see something? And I said, sure. I was lying. I said, sure. She pushed back some wine bottles and pulled out a gun. And she said, my dad has these everywhere. And she said, he's a cop. He's a police officer in Flint Police. And I said, neat, again, but this time really not meaning it. The night went on. I tried to make myself at home. I kept my shoes on. I did all the things that good guests do. I avoided dark corners. She took me to the basement. We played ping pong. And after the ping pong match, she said, do you want to see something really freaky? And I lied and said yes. She peeled back a Beverly Hills Cop poster, and behind it was a hole. And she said, it's a bullet hole. About a week ago, my dad was down here shooting in the dark because he was paranoid that some man was in his house. Now, I didn't know a lot about relationships. This is my first girlfriend, but I realized the truth at that moment, which was when you fall in love, you don't know when it happens, you don't know how it happens, you can't trace it. But when you fall out of love, there's a fucking track record of behavior. There are decisions that person's made and things that they've said, and you remember that shit when you come to break up. But like at the theater, I felt I was too deep. I said, we're one of the couples that makes it. You can do this, David. So I stayed with her, but there was a noise then. There was a sound of rubber wheels on metal, and she said, shit, the garage. My parents are home. And she rushed me upstairs, and I was just about to the front door. And as they came in the garage, I could run out the front door. And she said, no, not the front door, up the stairs. And I'm not claiming that she was stupid. She wasn't, and I'm not claiming that I was smart. I certainly wasn't, but I went up those stairs with her, and she took me to the closet of her bedroom, and she put 2 hands on my forehead and pushed me in and said, you stay quiet. And she left. And over the coming 20, 25 minutes, I heard voices downstairs. I heard things like, was Dave over? And I heard her saying, no, he wasn't over. And they're saying, was he really over? And she's saying, no, he wasn't over. And I felt the blood rush from my body. And I thought, there's no way I'll ever explain to this police officer that the young man who showed her Mark Wahlberg's penis is the same man who's in her closet now and is the same man who had no ill intentions for the whole evening. I knew it was impossible, so I crept out. I went to the top of the stairs. I looked down. I saw the front door. And despite my asthma, I said, fuck it, I'm going to run. And I began to accelerate, and I was going down the stairs, and as I did, a badge and an officer stepped into my view, but I had so much momentum that I couldn't stop. But I thought to myself in that moment, you're a guest, leave it better than you found it. So I turned and I said, officer, as I ran, I said, officer, I was just here and only for a moment, but now I'm going. And I went out the door. My momentum carried me into the night, into the snowstorm, into my mother's car, eventually home, and I realized that night, if there's two paths through high school, and one of them's having a girlfriend, and one of them's sports, perhaps I'll try a sport. Thanks.